Hi, this is Scott Mensch with J2 Innovations, here for sales training at Stromquist and Company. We're going to cover some topics today that'll range from what's in it for the distributor, for the system integrator, and the end user. And we're going to cover FinBuilder, the tool set, as well as Fin Framework, the technology. And we'll look at some of the value propositions, some of the features, and just some of the great things that you can do with FinBuilder and the associated applications. The collateral that we put together for today's session is kind of a mixed bag. We utilize both the software itself to do a lot of the demonstration. So we're kind of anti-PowerPoint. If you're in the visualization software business, you're likely not going to be using PowerPoint. But for most people, we'll offer our collateral in a PowerPoint form. We also have online demos, brochures, and our website, as well as extensive use of social media. So a lot of online marketing videos on YouTube, as well as an extensive library of how-to videos on YouTube from a training perspective. And that all supports the sales process. So we'll get you hooked up with all those great resources as we kind of jump around through the topics. When you're first engaging a system integrator, probably the number one value proposition that we're trying to get across is engineering labor savings. In fact, we kind of have to dispel one of the very first myths that J2's FinBuilder is a library of graphic elements. That's certainly a pigeonhole that we don't want to be put into. There are plenty of companies that make great libraries. In fact, Niagara comes with a library of graphics, right? PX HVAC. FinBuilder does have a library, but we're so much more than that. And so if we talk about the engineering workflow and we talk about what a system integrator does to create a solution for a customer, there's a ton of engineering labor. And what we've done is gotten some of the best software developers, some of the best people in the industry to get together and to cut that labor down by using the latest technology. So that's what FinBuilder is all about. Probably the best way when you're first introducing it to somebody is just go to our website, j2in.com, and take a look at this video that we put together. In fact, let me go full screen for you. This is a day in the life of a system integrator. And the idea here is the workflow that we traditionally have pieced together the solution is extremely inefficient. And so we took every facet of an application engineer's job and we analyzed the keystrokes. We measured the mouse distances. There's actually a whole group of people called human factors experts that study how people use tools. And we believe that we've come up with the best tool for doing what it is that a system integrator does. So what you've seen is smart objects snapping together on an air handler. You're seeing individual library coming in from a third party. And you're actually now seeing 3D piping with shadows and equipment, as well as dynamic colored piping all coming in. And then of course, drag and drop is a big part of optimizing the workflow. So you'll see a station being opened up there and all the live points are just simply being dragged and dropped onto the visualization. Dashboards are a hot topic, so custom dashboards for KPIs, energy usage, sustainability, and awareness. Those are all common things that you can do in this tool called FinBuilder. And in fact, one of the key technology advances is the ability to do actions, and I'll show you what actions mean. But generally speaking, to the sales guy, it's those cool, sexy graphics that move things around, translates to actions behind the scenes in the technology. We've even taken the best of Niagara, which is the nav file, and built a tree structure with an icon and a nice friendly description to bring back that navigation that people loved back in the early days of R2, if anybody's been around doing that. And so we've got the latest technology kind of merged with the old inefficient technology, which is creating nav files by hand. So here it is on a server, a web supervisor or JACE, and we're using that nav file. We're pulling up those air handlers, the VAVs, 3D piping, dashboards, floor plans. And so generally speaking, when somebody says, how much does Fin cost? We say it's nothing. We're going to essentially share the savings of labor savings that your team is going to enjoy, and you get to pocket part of it, and that'll pay for the license fee. So we'll get into pricing later on. So that's probably the first step in engaging a system integrator. Show them that video. That kind of tells the story and walks them through. And then honestly, when we go and do training in the next 3 days, every step that was shown in that video we'll do live as part of the course curriculum. So we deliver on that marketing video. That wasn't staged. That was literally just segments taken from a typical training class. All right, so from a resource standpoint, we've got a brochure on our website that you can download, and we've got the points of it built right into a PowerPoint. And so typically the next level of engagement is to dive into each one of these value propositions a little bit deeper and then provide examples. So as an example, this PowerPoint kind of walks through the bullets in the product that we call FinBuilder. And we'll talk about our roadmap about future products as well. But right now, our flagship, if you will, is the tool called FinBuilder. And it does a number of things. Number one, it provides cross-platform support. And one of the hot topics is, what are you doing for mobile? What are you doing for HTML5? Where does the browser fit into this? And I'll get into that discussion. The good news is we've solved it. The saves time and money value proposition is a big bullet. So we broke that down into the facets of what a system integrator's got to do. They got to create navigation for the end user. They've got to create the major pieces of equipment like air handlers, VAVs. They've got to do 3D piping. Many of them have an installed base of existing graphics, so there has to be a play there for bringing in the look and feel of an existing site while migrating them to the latest and greatest technology. We solved that problem by being able to drag and drop your existing graphic libraries. And then dashboards, of course, is part of that overall solution. In fact, some people buy FinBuilder initially just to build a kiosk because of the actions, and then realize that, wow, it's not just about great looking graphics with cool moving sliding things. It's about the core, let me do every job more efficiently and save more money. Also, we kind of foreshadow of our future, visualizing any data source. Right now, the sweet spot that we felt was all the great stuff that Niagara is doing. So we live on a Niagara server. But there's other data sources out there like Sedona-based devices, other IP devices like live video or controllers. A lot of things are starting to become IP at the edge. And so we have what we call the connector framework that allows us to visualize literally any data source. We just decided to start first at the Niagara side, and then we'll work out from there. And then the byproduct of this is, yes, we do have a kick-ass graphics library. Yes, we do create fantastic user experiences. And so once the core value proposition is understood that I'm saving money, it pays for itself, then the byproduct of that is that I've got now the latest and greatest looking graphics from a library that we include for free. I've got dashboards and actions that are moving and sliding and introducing information dynamically. And I've got the ability to bundle that all up and show it on a cell phone or a tablet. Behind the scenes, we also have done a lot of work to help promote company standards. And what that means is that the tool itself creates little buckets for you to put things that you've done so you don't have to do them again. So we call those models. And so a typical application engineer, after being trained on our software, after he's done 1 or 2 jobs, he'll be pulling 80 to 90% of the stuff out of his library rather than starting from a core text box and then linking it and then doing this and this and this. That was one of the shortcomings with PX. There was no real good way to bundle things up and reuse them. Niagara did a great job on the logic, but on the visualization part, not so much. And we broke through with some great technology to make using chunks over and over again and gaining some huge efficiencies there. At the end of the day, it's really simple to use. You know, some tools are great, but they need to be bundled with consultant services to get the job done. And what we did is we took kind of the least common denominator and we said, how could an end user create their own visual experience if they were self-performing? How do we get to a one-man show that's doing control logic in the morning and graphics in the afternoon? Those were the design requirements for how simple the software had to be. Now don't get me wrong, it's got a ton of developer capabilities. So in a way, we've often said we should make our software appeal from the yellow belt all the way up to the black belt. And I think we've accomplished that. So that's enough PowerPoint for one day. Built into this deck is essentially a slide for each of those bullet points that I overviewed. So this will be referenced, and I'll leave a copy of this behind for your use. But in fact, there's notes that are embedded into the slide deck that'll kind of give you the dialogue if you're doing a sales presentation. So this is good collateral. Now, technically, if you've got somebody that's not in just the sales capacity, but now is maybe doing a dual role, they're a company owner, and they also do the engineering, they might want to know what's going on behind the scenes. So oftentimes in the sales presentation, if the audience is curious, I'll go one level deeper and I'll kind of show behind the scenes how FinBuilder is working. So if you guys don't mind, I think you guys are fairly technical, we'll dive down into this just a little bit. Now, one of the things that I like is this one visualization, because it does kind of show all of the different data sources that we could connect to. It's all coming into this framework. You know, software with lots of services is by definition a framework. That's actually where Fin comes from. Fin is an acronym for fluid integration. The first three letters of Fin is fluid integration, the integration between device data at the top and the humans, us, at the bottom. And that user experience is a new term that we coined, not to be just a graphics company, not to be just a library, not to be just a front-end workstation, but the whole user experience is something that is kind of coming from the consumer market with mobile devices like phones and tablets and starting to influence the building automation market, which traditionally was a desktop workstation or a laptop. People are saying, hey, can I get my building automation on my iPhone? Can I get my building automation on my Android tablet? And the answer is yes. So that's what you're seeing across that bottom, is that seamless integration of humans to that device data. All those different buckets coming into the framework and all the different ways to experience that information down at the bottom. So if you kind of put names on some of these buckets, name a really kick-ass control engine. Well, Sedona would be a good example, and there are IP devices out there that speak Sedona. So we might get control data coming in. Integration engine, what's a kick-ass integration engine? Well, Niagara framework, right? So we've got a connector, which is the OBIX protocol, and just released the NHaystack protocol to get information out of a Niagara server. Content. This is just kind of leaves the door wide open for digital signage. So imagine social media feeds, YouTube videos, weather feeds, live radars, all coming into this engine, and then we can visualize it. And I'll show you some connectors that we've done there. Analytics engines, there's a number that have popped up in the industry over the last couple of years. You've got Data-Eye from CSI Cubed, and you've got Sky Foundry's SkySpark. Those are engines that go through historical data and near real-time data to go and apply rules and show us what's going on. We can take those results and visualize that in our software as well. And then mapping, GIS, Global Information Services. Great stuff going on in, everybody's seen a Google Map or a Google Earth or Bing. Can you imagine bringing that kind of experience into this framework? So that kind of sets the stage of what we're doing. And then if you kind of look at how we're doing it very specifically to the Niagara world right now, the technical overview is really not too much different from what you're used to. So right now, if you were to use a tool, it would be the workbench with the PX editor in Niagara. And the output of that would be a PX file that goes over to the server, which is a JACE or a web supervisor. And then the customer, the end user, would consume that with a client device, a browser with a plugin, like Java plugin. And then the live data would come across the wire, in this case, using Niagara's proprietary protocol, which is FOX. So what do we do when we put a FinBuilder experience in place? Well, we basically take the yellow stuff in this diagram and we make it blue. But that's kind of a joke. But in reality, the tool and the parallel stays very similar. Now the tool is called FinBuilder. Behind the scenes, instead of being Java, we found that when we looked across all the great technologies out there for people that make front-end software and tools, it's Adobe's product called Air, if you care to know. Doesn't really matter. The output of that is very similar to a PX page. It's an XML file that represents the user experience, and that gets hosted on the server, in this case the Niagara framework, in the form of a JSON or a web supervisor. That client device, the browser, same kind of story. In this case, for the desktop environment, we actually use a Flash Player plugin to render that payload in that device. And we'll talk more about mobile in just a second. It makes a request to the server, the payload comes across, and then Niagara was nice enough to provide a third-party integration to the data, which would be Obix and Haystack in the future for the live stuff. So you kind of see the similarities of the tool, the server, and then the end client between the two. And we did that very intentionally. This is not the only architecture that you can do with the Fin framework, but it is kind of a comfortable one that we've decided to kind of go out the door with. Rest assured that we are working on all sorts of great stuff, and I'd be happy to show you more variations on this theme. Now, if we go and introduce the mobile piece, people want to have a tablet, they want to have an iPhone. And so in that case, what we did is decided to go with a native app. As you may have done in previous lives, trying to get a mobile browser to be compatible with a PX page or an HX page, some things work and some things don't. There's a lot of diversity in mobile browsers, and we researched that topic long and hard. And what it really boils down to is we could create a native app to render that payload almost with full fidelity of what we saw in the desktop environment. And so that's exactly what we've done. We've put a native app in the iOS and a native app in the Android world to render that Fin payload. So the tool stays the same, which is Fin Builder. The behind-the-scenes technology stays the same, which is Air. And then the user experience is varied between a desktop, a tablet, or a phone by using either a browser or a native app to render it. So that's how we believe we've really nailed this topic quite elegantly by providing a single tool that plays well across multiple platforms. And I think that's a key value proposition. So when you're going in and talking to system integrators, ask them, are they hearing demand from their customers to go more mobile? Is there a need for a user experience that is on their phone or on a tablet? And if so, you can deliver a solution for them without re-engineering it 2 or 3 times. Now the cool thing is you could actually make your own mobile app, if you will, for VAV balancing or custom checkout or just for Boiler Bob. Our technology is so powerful that it doesn't have to be just your traditional BAS graphics. We just prototyped, anybody seen the Nest thermostat on the residential side? We took our Fin Builder and literally created the user experience of the Nest app. So just wanted to leave that door wide open for you to know that Fin Builder is a development platform as well as an end user, a system integrator tool set. All right, enough of that. Company overview. We've been around for 4 or 5 years, very mature in the software world. Our headquarters is in Southern California, and we're up to 20 talented employees globally. And what we did is we looked for some of the best talent in the world, and we found it in 2 hotspots, a little bleed over from Silicon Valley in Southern California, and believe it or not, in Bucharest, Romania. Some of the best Adobe programmers are part of our team as well. So we have offices in Chino, Richmond, which is where I live, and Bucharest, and we've pulled together some of the best of the best. And some people ask, what's our go-to-market strategy? So as you guys know, you are one of our targeted partners. We specifically could do visualization in digital signage and industrial and residential smart houses, but we took what our partners, Jason and I, know best, which is the building automation market, and we targeted that market segment, and specifically the open protocol community, whether it be Niagara or BACnet or what have you. We've partnered with elite distributors like yourself, And to date, we're up to over 230 trained system integrators, and we have over 2,000 people in our community, which is really exciting. All right. So any questions at this point on the kind of the value proposition or the technology? All good? All right, so let's dive in with some more hands-on. So what can you do with this tool? Well, let me show you what we will do tomorrow in training. Behind the scenes, nothing up our sleeves, we've got a server, and in this case it's a Niagara server. So that could be a new job going out the door in the form of a JACE or a web supervisor. And all we do is we put a service on it behind the scenes called the J2 service right there that does all the magic for getting the communications up and hosting the files. And we have our own licensing service as well. Actually, a little foreshadowing in there, the Haystack service is in there, something that J2 created to help that community grow on the tagging of building automation data, but more on that in a different post. Okay, FinBuilder is the tool that we're going to look at right now, and that tool is how we created this solution. So this is a typical building automation job that we did in FinBuilder for class, and we did it as a series of 8 labs. So you'll see the finished lab is kind of the opening screen, and if I were to dissect it, you'll start to get a feel for what's going on behind the scenes. So as an example, very similar to what you might have experienced in the PX editor, there's components, or Niagara calls them widgets, and those components have properties. What's really unique, though, about our components is that they can be linked to what we call shadow objects and virtual points. And those virtual points actually are double bound. One is bound to this label, and then the other side of it is bound to the controller. Why that's important is that that is what enables our reusability. And so we could have a BACnet job today, a LawnWorks job tomorrow, or a Sedona job the next day, and the user experience and all the graphic elements will stay bound to those virtual points. And literally by dragging and dropping the new job to the back side of those virtual points, you can essentially leverage that entire job without having to do any extra work. And I'll get into that by example as well. If we were to dissect this one just a little bit, off to the left-hand side, we've got a nav tree. And if you were to look behind the scenes, that's actually referencing one of the most powerful things in Niagara, which is the nav file, a list of parent and children graphic pages, if you will, and you can navigate through VAVs, air handlers, and so forth. You can change the icons. One of the things that we are really proud of is the fact that we took it one step further by putting a search box on it. So how many customers you might have with large campuses and a large web supervisor and tons of VAVs and tons of PX pages? Well, we can teach an old dog a new trick by doing nothing more than this opening screen and adding this new feature, which is the search button. So imagine their guys know their equipment by name because they're doing work orders. So instead of drilling down, back, they can just put in AHU 13. Actually, there is no 13, but you get the idea.
It's underscore, not hyphen.
Thank you. My demo has changed since last time. And that will then resolve not only that fin file or PX page, but it will then show the parent relationship. So in this case, air handler 1 is underneath floor 1. And so they can work their way down to air handler 1 and literally with one mouse click get there. And if they wanted to see correspondingly what's going on because of the beauty of that parent-child relationship in nav files, they can go up to floor 1 and see what's going on at the floor level. So we think that is just fantastic. And it can be used in so many other contexts, such as somebody has a multi-site retail across the United States. We can now put other nav files into this search so that they could have a nav file for Georgia, they could have a nav file for Florida, they could have a nav file for New York. And this first nav file would resolve to the state, and then when they clicked on the state, a second nav file would spawn, and that would show the different stores or the different pieces of equipment and so forth. So very sophisticated capabilities both with our nav and our search when they're combined together. Just a great example, a huge selling point, something that could be a spec item that differentiates your partners from other people in the marketplace. Let's do a little bit of the pizzazz. So mouse over. This is something that you see in high-end graphics. And to do this in Niagara, you kind of have to put a point over in Niagara, and you hope that your communications is fast enough so that when your mouse comes over the top, it kind of highlights. When we do things in Fin Builder, we decide what stays on the server, what should be optimized on the client, and mouse over clearly is one of those things that you would do on the client side. What does that mean to you in a selling situation? That means that you could probably fit 20% more stuff over in a JACE because you're not doing all this user experience things as dummy points and cluttering up that database, because we took care of it for you over on the client side with better tools. So this simple mouse over action is actually being done on the client side with no extra overhead on the server side. I know I'm getting down into the weeds, but that's a value proposition of more space in your JACEs and cleaner databases. Let's take a look at an air handler as an example. This is what you'd expect, the ability to relativize points if it's a typical piece of equipment. So this is only one file, but it's being applied to dozens of air handlers, or in this case, 6 air handlers. And so without jumping to another graphic, we literally have an action behind the scenes that says, look in this folder for air handler 1 points. Oh, now switch it over to air handler 2 points. So a fundamental simplicity of being able to use virtualized points, or what we call relativized points, and the actions to swap those over. Let's take a look at floor plans. This is one of my favorites. If you ask your SIs how much time do they spend doing floor plans with the hyperlinks, particularly big floor plans that might be broken up into quadrants or even more, they're oftentimes hyperlinking from the west to the east, from the north to the south, and as soon as somebody renames something, that hyperlink breaks. We solved that problem by introducing an action called zoom. So check this out. Instead of dividing this floor plan up 4 times and making 4 PX pages, we just make one floor plan graphic, and then we fire off an action on this button bar, and that action then goes to a zoom window. See what we're doing here? That is phenomenal. And we can even get more sophisticated. We could even have an action that turns on detail as we get zoomed in and turns off detail when we zoom out. Very similar to Google Maps. You know, you get the street names when you're down low, and you only get the road names when you're up high. And there's an action zoom out. We even have the ability, see how the hand is like a little panning tool. I can actually pick up the floor plan and just walk down the hall and check out my space temperatures this way. And we've got a lot of great feedback from system integrators and their customers that this is a breakthrough in the user experience. But what if we want to take the floor plan idea another level? I want to kind of share with you, and maybe you can share that with your customers, that we're all about the user experience being interactive, and we're changing the paradigm from turning pages, which is what web pages and hyperlinks are, to more like an app environment. You launch the app, you get into it, and then you bring in information, you make it go away as you need it. And so as an example here, here's a really simple floor plan. In this case, we're doing the gradient colors to kind of show you at a glance, how are my VAVs doing? You know, too hot, too cold, whether they're blue or red. And then if I want more detail, traditionally I would click on that zone and it would spawn a whole new page, and then I'd have to navigate back to the floor plan. The new paradigm is that I just introduce information. So in this case, I create a mini VAV graphic, and I introduce that. And it doesn't have to be mini, by the way. It could be, you know, the whole screen if you wanted to. The point is you're not hyperlinking off the screen. You're introducing information and then making it go away. Now let's take that idea one step further. I can put actions inside of my user experience that do even better things. So in this case, I'm calling out another call out. In this case, it's a sequence of operation. Now, one of the neat features is that we can do dynamic point variables right into our text box. So this text box actually is going out and taking the sequence of operation and mixing and matching fixed values with live values. So we call it dynamic sequence of operation. Another spec item that, again, you could differentiate, your customers could differentiate using this cool feature. So you're literally seeing the live data coming into the space temperature is 72.5, and then the set point is 70 degrees, and the damper's modulating at such and such. The good news is you do that once for your very first job, or you pull it out of our library and you don't have to do it ever again. So a lot of these features look advanced and look like it'd take a lot of time to do, but in reality, we've done many of them for you, and we're going to show you how to do those in class. Speaking of summaries, back in the day we used to do VAV summaries with lots of text box and lots of labels. Now we just run a query. And so if I were to add VAV 16 to this job tomorrow, I would never have to touch this graphic, because the next time I go on to it, it's going to rerun the query, and instead of 15 boxes, there'll be 16 boxes. That's pretty powerful. Now, a lot of system integrators go out to third-party softwares to draw their 3D piping, and this is a huge time sink. And so what we've done is we've taken the the basic 3D effects of a chiller, a boiler, and the piping in between, and we built a 3D virtual world that a system integrator can use with a simple mouse without going into a 3D studio or an Autodesk kind of tool. So the learning curve and the cost of the software is eliminated. You stay inside this tool and you create solutions like this. And if anybody's ever tried to animate pipe in PX to follow, let's say, a temperature or a set point, you know that the labor to do that is painful, because every segment has to be animated. Here, we have a temperature sensor that snaps to the pipe. As soon as I bind a temperature to it, there's one property in that sensor called use dynamic coloring, and the piping all lights up from start to finish. So 3 mouse clicks and you're done. Similarly, a boiler plant, and that's a specifiable item. Now the boiler plant, I think, is kind of neat too, because a lot of these plants get a little crowded, as you saw in that chiller. So again, in that vein of introducing information and then making it go away, we've done that for the boiler. So instead of cluttering this, what we did is we took the 3 points on the boiler, and in a mouse over, we created a pop-up or a tooltip with live data in it. So you can see the high limit is normal, the low water is normal, and the alarm status is normal. So it's becoming more interactive, more of a customer user experience. And then we'll finish up with some examples of a dashboard. And we'll teach this in class, but this would have been 7 PX pages to pull this off. Let me just scroll down just a little bit. Yeah, so this is actually a dashboard for some KPIs for 3 buildings. And traditionally that would have been a PX page per building. But what we have now is the ability to fire off actions. And in this case, there's an action behind that button for building 2 that says substitute the data using this same set of widgets or components, but instead of building 1's data, use building 2's data. Think of how powerful that is when you can do that. So we're literally walking through the different buildings just by firing off those actions. Now similarly, we could do something on the historical side. And again, this might have been 4 PX pages to show a graph of the yearly data, then showing a graph of the monthly data, and then showing the graph of the weekly data. So today's Tuesday, so this is our energy up to today. And what time is it? It's almost 4 o'clock, so there's our energy up to today. And so that is extremely powerful. And behind the scenes, same concept. It's just an action, but in this case, it's changing the filter on that graph that's going into the history and slicing and dicing the data and then visualizing it. So there's a paradigm shift and a technology enabler that's making all this good stuff happen. And then kind of in the bottom of our nav file, we've got the ability to go out and spawn an alarm console. We can go to the user service. We could show a wire sheet, property sheet, any web page, any PX page. So you can mix and match legacy as well as the newfangled stuff in one consistent user experience. So you're not limited to just Fin, you can do it all. Question?
Can you export that data?
You can. We support 2 different exports currently, and we're doing more as we go. So right now there is a print function which takes the data and sends it out as a PNG or a GIF. And a lot of people like that because it's portable and it can be emailed. So hey, look at this, snap, and then off it goes. And the other one is comma separated values. And a lot of people ask about a PDF engine, and what we found is there's a lot of utilities that you can put actually at the server or at the client side that are just print engines that create PDFs. So that same print function might just go to a PDF just as easy with some software we've already done. So we haven't built that in. We tried to find where the edges of the tool should start and where they should end. And for instance, we don't do any pixel manipulation like you'd find on a floor plan editing tool like Photoshop or Paintbrush. We start with an image and then we have a really kick-ass tool for drawing the polygons for the gradient fills and the mouse overs. And then we add actions to do the pop-ups. So we kind of try to decide where our forte should be and where there's good tools that will meet halfway in the middle. So PDFs and image editing are two good examples of that. Great question. So that's kind of the 50-cent tour. I think generally speaking, a sales call can be less than an hour if you don't go into quite the detail that I did, but I gave you a really solid sampling of the day in the life of a system integrator solution and how we've added functionality, how we've added features that can be sold, and then hopefully the value proposition still holds that they're going to be doing this and doing it in less time. The qualifier there is we always give you enough rope to hang yourself by. So during training, we teach people the fastest way, and we also show them some advanced features. And that way they can decide if they're getting paid to do a really Cadillac job, they could do more stuff. And if they're doing just a bare minimum job, they can pull it right out of the library and be done with it in short order. Awesome. Questions?
So right now you're in that's like the engineering application?
That's right. So we are in Fin Builder, the tool.
Okay. So it is a separate tool.
Yep.
That would sit like on an engineer's laptop.
That's right. And that's actually a good segue into our business model. Right now we don't charge for the tool. I have a little qualifier in there because we have a vision for a suite of tools that we probably would charge something. But right now, Fin Builder, you load on your engineer's laptop, and that's how they create the solution. The sales guy, same way. He can use Fin Builder and demo it without any problem because we have this live mode right here. The last step that your guys are going to do in class is they're going to come over here and they're going to do what's called publish. And that takes that payload and puts it on the server. So in this case, our current server is the Niagara framework. And so behind the scenes, these all get put into the JACE or the web supervisor as a component in the space, and all the assets get put down in the file system nice and efficiently in that one mouse click. So, yep. And so ultimately, actually, let me just take you through that scenario. If I were to open up a typical job like this, let's see, my first Fin file. So right now, this is the first lab that we do. We've got historical data, we've got some live data, and we've got some actions for hiding the chart, there it goes, and showing the chart. So what we do then is we do a publish, and we send it over to, this should look familiar, there's your configuration tree in Niagara. And we'll just stick it right in the root, and I think I already did that once, so we'll overwrite it. And so now it's gone from the tool over to the server, whether it be halfway around the world or the JACE right on your desk. And then as a convenience, there's the fully qualified ORD, which you can copy to your clipboard or just push open, and it launches the browser of your choice. And so here is your traditional login screen for Niagara. We just branded it. You can unbrand it if you want. And I think I have the security patch in there, so I actually do put in a username. That's the running joke in our office. Not funny, sorry. And there it is. So now we're in the browser. And the final part of our business model is you give me a couple of dollars and I'll remove that watermark for your customers. And so effectively each of your system integrators just pays by the job, again in that kind of engineering labor savings sharing arrangement that we have. So we try to make it easy to do business with us. No cost for the tools, no demo licenses. All it is a single PO to come to training. Your first license is bundled in it, and then as you do jobs, just send StromQuest a PO, and we remove that watermark by the job.
But your engineering tool is talking to a live Niagara station running somewhere.
Oh, it's published content to a bunch of Niagara stations, and during the engineering part, you are talking and dragging and dropping points. Yep, great question.
So is it one price for every job, or figured out points?
Yeah, the product model, we try to keep it as simple and similar to what people are used to doing. So people are used to buying Jaces in the Niagara community. They're buying drivers by the Jace. So what we did is we said, okay, let's just make a license by the Jace. And so if you're doing a Jace 2, a 5, a 6, or a 7, there's a specific price for each one. And generally speaking, we figured out how many engineering hours we can save, and we just work backwards. And so we hope that you'll save 2 or 3 hours on a Jace 2. We hope you'll save 5 or 6 hours on a Jace 6, and maybe 10 hours or 12 hours on a Jace 7. And
What is a UXI?
Yes. Somehow we had to measure the value that we're going to give through this tool. And so we really struggled with, is it points? Is it number of controllers? It's some metric that is got a scale. Because remember, we could put the user experience into literally a digital thermostat for $2, and we could put it on the whole city of Dubai's 65-foot command center for $10,000. Same technology, same exact license. So what we did is we came up with a concept called user experience indexes, and it's nothing more than a calculation of all the pieces and parts that go into maybe a dashboard like this. It's really not all that important that you know that a gauge is worth 5 and a bar chart is worth 2 and a link is worth 1. It's fractions of a penny. What we really want you to do is feel like we've given you plenty of UXIs. You shouldn't ever have to count, but just rest assured that you're not going to use a Jace license on a Jace 7. We've scaled it appropriately.
Yeah, it seems like it can come into board and play on supervisor, right?
It does, and in fact, that's kind of, I remember my early days with Niagara, people would say, how am I going to ever estimate a job for lawn? How many lawn devices can I fit in a Jace 2 or whatever? And there was a lot of confusion, a lot of stress, and we said, don't worry about it. There's some really simple rules of thumb for lawn, and we actually came up with really simple rules of thumb for web supervisors. And what we do is we just publish what the total is for each of the Jaces. And so, for instance, if I have a web supervisor with 4 J6s under it, if you go to the price list, there's actually a number next to the J6 called 25K UXIs. And so you just say, as a rule of thumb, 25 times 4, I'll buy or I'll estimate 100K UXIs at the web supervisor. Cool thing is, this tool will tell you exactly what you're using while you're engineering the job. So if you estimated the 100,000 and this particular web super was very lightly loaded and you're not going to get paid for extra expansion, you could actually license it for less. So we try to make it as easy both for the estimating standpoint and also for the application engineer that actually has to license it at the beginning of the job. So we have this thing called license and fin file status, and it just totals up against this host how much each one of those graphics is consuming. And you can actually see proportionally, which ones, and then of course the grand total. So this one's not licensed. Neat, great question. Will that stay the same in the future? Well, we are always open to feedback, and we listen to our customers, we listen to our distributors, and we'll respond to the market with our pricing model. But right now, that's what we've gone out the door with for the last 2 years. And as technologies evolve, it might go to a different model. I can kind of hint at that because we've gotten some really good feedback on some alternative ways of approaching it. But basically, it's just pay as you go, and it scales appropriately. That's why UXIs were invented. Question?
Yeah, you were showing how you zoom in, like you can zoom into the state, and then you zoom into campus or wherever.
Yep.
On the mobile app, does it pull in the GPS of the mobile app to where it can do that automatically?
No, the question is, can I use the client device's extra stuff like the GPS? Currently, no. But that's a great question because you'll start to see, I've been hiding the secret sauce at the bottom here called Actions Panel, but let's just kind of expose it. On this button, you'll see that there's an action right now, which is a fade out action. And if I were to just kind of take you through a day in the life of an application engineer using this, this is what's taught in day 1 of the class. Check this out. So there's a mouse over and a mouse out. That's basically all you got in Niagara. I'm sorry, and you've got to click. But we have the ability to do so much more. And what you're talking about is that I might be able to have an action that's tied to something else that's on the client device, on camera click, on email, on coordinate change. And those are all certainly in the realm of possibilities. We kind of started at the bare minimum that the industry is used to, and then are adding features as we go. So that's a great suggestion that you might see in the future, is client-side specific functions or actions that fire functions. Give you a little sneak of what's going on behind the scenes from a developer standpoint. Check this out. I've got a click action, and look how long this list is. We might actually have to break it down into an advanced and simplified. But if I have a button or actually any component, I now have the ability to acknowledge an alarm. So from the client side, I can go over to the server and acknowledge an alarm. I could change a query on a table with a mouse click. I could print the screen, I could zoom, which you saw an example of. Here's the traditional one. This is all you have in PX. When I click a mouse, go to a web page, which is a hyperlink function. We barely ever use that. Change property, that would be an example of where you might have a set point. Change virtual point, evoke commands. That would be like sending a fan into auto or manual and so forth. Write values, change equipment. This is where we have a single template of an air handler, and we take it from air handler 1 and make it air handler 5 just by evoking this one command. Change cursor, which moves up and down a table. So imagine having a table of VAVs, and when you click on VAV 5, all of the graphics change to be VAV 5's graphics. And you just see this continues on and on, but check this out. Anybody that wants to create their own app or create their own wizard or create their own appliance, you could literally do server-side stuff from FinBuilder. So you could take a bog file, and imagine you wrote a little wizard for deploying thermostats. And I could have a pre-made set of logic hanging out, and when somebody says add a thermostat, I could grab that bog file, make a duplicate of it over in Niagara, change all the links to it, bring along the graphics, and effectively build an appliance using FinBuilder. Deleting links, adding links, renaming components, arranging the wire sheet, those are all advanced functions that makes FinBuilder more than just a tool for doing graphics. It's a tool now for creating user experiences that include wizards, appliances, and other applications. So that's a great question. I'm sorry I went down in the weeds, but there's a lot of value down there that's kind of a gem hidden down under the covers, and that's more on the black belt side as you get better with the tools, or if you have a customer that's more of a developer versus an SI, we can get you more information on. Cool. Great questions. I think I've gone a little bit over, so any other questions, or we'll wrap things up. Hi, this is Scott with J2 Innovations. Thanks for watching the Fin Sales Training Module. For more information, you can contact our Fin authorized distributor, StromQuest, at this address above.
If you need to control it or measure it, Stromquist & Company has a control solution for you. With over $2 million of inventory between our Georgia and Florida locations, an easy-to-use online ordering platform, same-day shipping, and a factory-trained team of controls experts to answer your questions, Stromquist & Company continues in its tradition of offering great service and great products.